With the rise of Gabe Spire and Justin Torpa, could the Mariners' bullpen be even better than it was in 2022? And how concerning is Julio's recent slump? We'll answer that and more here on Mailbag Monday. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Monday, April 17th, 2023. This is Trident Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/MLB60 and use promo code MLB60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you listen to us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We want to see how many of you can call yourselves a true everydayer of the Locked On Mariners podcast. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon by scanning the QR code right above my head. The link, as well as our social accounts, is also in the description of this episode. And this episode is Mailbag Monday, the show where we answer your Seattle Mariners questions. Let's just dive right into them, Colby, starting with Nick, who asked, would you say our team's two-strike approach is poor overall? It seems as though they don't shorten up their swings or expand their zone. Is this an issue at the player level or coach? Colby, floor is yours, my man.
No, it's not an issue, period, at the coaching level or the player level. Just not really a thing. Two-strike exists, or two-strike approach really kind of stopped existing 10 years ago when Major League Baseball teams just decided they really didn't care that much if you struck out a lot, as long as you can make up for it in other areas, and that area has been so far power. When you look at where the Mariners rank in terms of strikeouts, they're not egregiously high. They're in towards the top of the pack, top of the middle of the pack, but they're right there, basically in the middle of the pack in a lot of different categories, including two-strike hitting, and all that stuff. So the approach isn't really the problem, and the guys who are kind of struggling with strikeouts right now, Raleigh, Teoscar, Gino, Julio right now, those are guys you kind of expect to strike out some. So I really don't think, Ty France isn't striking out. JP's not striking out. These are guys who you're gonna strike out some when you're trying to hit for power like these guys are. You're gonna strike out a little bit more, and really what you're sacrificing is probably, I don't know, 10 singles for 15 home runs. If they were to drastically change their approach. So it's just not worth it. The calculus isn't in your favor to worry too much about strikeouts, and therefore adopt a really aggressive two-strike approach. It's just not really a thing in Major League Baseball anymore. It hasn't been for 10 years, ever since, the strikeout really dominated baseball. And honestly, how much would a two-strike approach really help with the dominant level of pitching that we have in the big leagues right now? Everybody coming out of the bullpens throwing 98 with a wipeout slider. It's really not going to help. So you might as well go out there. You might as well, try and do damage even with two strikes, because it's really hard to string together 3 singles to score off a reliever. You're going to have to hit a double or a home run or something to make that happen. So I really don't think the two-strike approach is much of a thing anymore. And even if it was, the Mariners aren't terrible with 2 strikes. So I would say it's not really a problem right now.
The Mariners, interestingly enough, are actually third in Major League Baseball in hard contact percentage. 34% of the balls that they put in play, hard contact on 2-strike counts. They are striking out around middle of the pack, just like they are overall on two-strike counts. 43.3% of the time striking out. They're also about 13th in WRC plus with their 14th with a mark of 44. The leader in that category is the Braves with 95. And then there's a pretty big gap between first and second place. The Phillies are at second with a WRC plus of 77 on 2-strike counts. The A's, interestingly, are right behind them and third. But overall, we've talked a little bit about them taking pitches just down the middle, just fastballs down the pipe for strike 3. That's been a little bit annoying. Would like to see them get more aggressive on those types of pitches. But like Colby said, overall, you don't want to change guys' philosophies too much, especially for guys like Julio, Teoscar, Gino. For as many strikeouts as they're going to rack up, they're also going to hit some game-changing, maybe even season-changing home runs in those spots as well. So it's a give and take type of situation.
Yeah. It's frustrating to see him strike out with a guy on third and one out or nobody out, but just kind of part of baseball right now. And I don't think that adopting a obvious 2-strike approach type of swing is really the answer that you're hoping for.
Next question here comes from Doug. Are we starting to get a little worried about a possible sophomore slump?
No.
For Julio?
Nope. Next
question. Seriously though, I mean, it's Julio at the end of the day, and look, he's been a hell of a lot better this April than he was last April. So we think that he can have a similar May through October as he did last year. You're looking at a 6+ win player. Julio's going to be fine. Julio's Julio. Like we said, within the context of talking about Jared Kelenic and when he would face adversity, talked about everyone slumps. Everyone's going to slump, including guys like Julio. And we're seeing Julio go through one of the few slumps that he'll have over the course of the season, just like everyone else, just like Yordan Alvarez and Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. All those guys are going to slump at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth noting that the slump for Julio has only been about a week. The first week of the season, he was really good. He was fine. And even this last week, he still found a few hits here and there. He's managed to keep his head above water, but he is in a little bit of a slump right now. But just in general, I don't really think sophomore slumps exist to the degree that a lot of fans think they do anymore, just because it used to be back in the day, it would take about a year to get a good report on you. But now every single pitch of every single game is recorded and televised, and there's scouts from every team at every game just watching for the little way that they can exploit you. There's so much data that pitchers are adjusting, pitching staffs and coaching staffs are adjusting to the hitter in the middle of a game. They're not waiting, till next year to try and get you on this. And Julio has to react, and he has to counterpunch their counter punches. And it's just this give and take. So I don't really think sophomore slumps exist all that much anymore. Sure, sometimes guys have better rookie years than second seasons, but that's probably has more to do with the batter not making the adjustment to the new pitching style than it does just that the league's figured him out. Because Julio knows how teams are attacking him now too. Of course he does. He's not stupid. The Mariners aren't stupid. He'll make his adjustment. The league will adjust back, and it's just a back and forth type of thing. And that's why slumps happen. So no, I'm not worried at all about Julio. And I really don't think sophomore slumps are that big of a thing. And what is a sophomore slump? If Julio's a 5-win player this year, is that a slump because he was a 6-win player last year? I guess, but are we really concerned about that? No, shouldn't be.
Right. So at the end of the day, concerned? Not at all. A little frustrated with what we're seeing out of Julio? Absolutely. In some of these situations where he's overswinging, he's trying to do way too much. But also amidst this slump that he's in, he's also racked up some pretty high exit velos. They've just gone right at guys. And then he also had that really nice bases clearing triple the other night against the Rockies as well. So there's still been some positive things out of Julio, even when he's not doing what you need him to do, when he's not being the guy that you need him to be. But that's going to happen over the course of the season. I'm not concerned about Julio. I still think that he is well on his way to a 6-7+ win season, and finishing hopefully in the top 5 of American League MVP voting. That's what I think that he can still be this year. And he's off to a decent enough start to get him on track to do that, I think, even with this little bit of slump that he's going through right now. All right, so we have more questions coming in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next level competitions and rewards. MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. And at the end of game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars, just like Seattle Mariners center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/locked on. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked on to start playing today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen here on Mailbag Monday. And before we get into the rest of our questions, because we don't have any more ad reads, I'm sure some of you will be happy to know that, we are going to do that thing that we do every single episode where we talk about our fundraiser over on Feeding America. So Colby, tell us what's going on over there.
People are hungry. They need food. We can help them.
Nice.
End of summation. Yeah, obviously you guys probably know this by now. We've teamed up with Feeding America. It's a fantastic organization which aims to end food insecurity in the United States. 34 million people are affected by food insecurity every single day. 9 million of them are children, and we can all help. Feeding America works with wholesalers to turn every dollar that is raised into 10 delicious, nutritious meals to help those facing food insecurity. So we started a fundraiser page with Feeding America last month, at the end of last month, with the goal of raising $500. You guys have knocked it out of the park. We're nearing $6,000 with about 2 weeks left to go. We are, at last check, the 13th largest individual Feeding America fundraiser in the world right now. And that's all thanks to you guys. So if you want to donate, again, remember, every dollar raised is 10 meals. So $10 would get you 100 meals. And hey, Jared Kelnick's number 10. It's the week of Jared Kelnick. So, maybe think about it. But if you do want to donate, any amount is truly appreciated. You can donate by scanning the QR code that is on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube, or you can click the link in the description of either the video, or if you're listening only, it'll be in the description of the episode. The link has been fixed, so you should be able to click it and take you to the fundraising page. If you've already donated and you want to help even more, you could always, share the video, share the link with your friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever, or you can just subscribe to this channel. Every subscription we get in the month of April, Ty and I are donating 10 cents to Feeding America, one meal essentially for every new subscriber. And we're closing in on 500 new subscribers right now. So we might get to 1,000 by the end of the month. We'll see. But that's another way you can help. And finally, again, if you've already done all that and you've tapped yourself out as far as you can go, thank you very much. But consider maybe sharing this fundraiser link with friends, family. Put it on your Facebook, on TikTok, Instagram, wherever you can spread the word. And ask your employer if they will match your donation, because apparently a lot of employers do that type of thing. So thank you guys so much for all the support. It's been incredible. It's been really fun to watch the number go up every day. And to see all the fun messages that are put on the donations, and whether it's anonymous or you want to let us know who you are, we do appreciate it very much. And we're closing in on 60,000 meals raised through Feeding America in about 3 weeks. So it's really, really cool to see the community come together like this.
Thank you guys a ton for the great response to this. Let's keep it going, because at 10K, I'm getting that tattoo. So get us to 10K. And hey, if you want to maybe donate more than $10 for Jared Kelnick, maybe 34 for Felix, because he is still the last major leaguer to throw a perfect game, Colby. That's right.
I couldn't care less.
I know you don't. Let's see if you maybe care less about this question from Joe, who says he's only been on the major league roster a week, but do you think Justin Topa is turning into something similar to Paul Sewald turned into in 2021? Seems like they're trusting him more because they gave him the ball in the 8th inning today. So yeah, we saw Topa late in yesterday's game. He continues to pitch very well. What do you think about what we've seen out of Topa? Is he this year's version of Paul Sewald, Colby?
It's possible. There are some similarities. Both guys kind of had cups of coffee with their first organization. Didn't really go that well. Acquired by Seattle for Seawald. It was just a minor league free agent deal. The Mariners traded, but didn't trade a lot. And Topo was kind of an afterthought in the offseason. They both kind of throw from a high sidearm style release point. They both kind of have sliders that they rely on heavily. Topa's sinker is a little bit more of a weapon, or it's a little bit different of a weapon than Seawald's fastball. Seawald's fastball, while not explosive in any manner whatsoever, is still a pretty good pitch for him. So yeah, there are some similarities here in terms of could he just be that style though? Could Justin Topa end up being like a high leverage arm that the Mariners trust late in the season in these, must win type of games? Sure, it's certainly possible. We've already seen them kind of start to do that. We saw him come in last night in the 8th ahead of Matt Brash in a 1-run game. Brash wasn't used at all yesterday, so maybe that's telling, maybe that's not. We'll see. But yeah, I think they're starting to trust Topa, and obviously they're starting to trust Spire a little bit. So yeah, I think it's possible. Sure. Jerry and his staff are pretty good at this, and Topa's always had good stuff. It's just kind of been a matter of harnessing it correctly, and the Mariners seem to be doing a pretty good job of that so far. We'll see. It's only been a handful of outings, and any reliever can look good for 5 outings. We'll see how he looks on outing 10, 20, 30 if he gets there. But so far, so good. And yeah, it's hard not to like the stuff that we've seen from Topa so far.
It's still very early and the data is limited, but one interesting thing that I've seen or that I've noticed in Topa's profile this year is that the slider velocity has gone up almost a full tick. And we talk about how the Mariners try to emphasize certain things in a guy's game or try to elevate certain pitches in a guy's repertoire. And it seems like maybe they've done that a little bit here with the slider, but still the data is so limited at this point, we don't know for sure. But that is something to at least keep an eye on as the season progresses. We have another question about the bullpen here, Colby. This one comes from Stu. I think this bullpen has the potential to outperform last year's group. Topa and Spire have been fantastic additions. Is there anything you would change at this point? Well, Colby, on Thursday, you and I talked about potentially moving on from Diego Castillo. Is that the answer here? Is there anything else you would change about this bullpen right now?
Not right now. Um, yeah, Diego's interesting. The stuff is really flattened out. He's just not throwing enough strikes either. So it's tough to trust Diego and even mop up duty right now.
Hmm.
We saw him walk a guy and hit a guy with a 7-run lead in the ninth the other night.
Yeah.
It's just really tough. The slider's actually been a little bit better this year, but it can still flatten out on you, which means he has to get value out of either the sinker or the four seamer. And it's just not. The velocity's down. Um, Diego's really the only guy I would consider moving on from right now, but I still think you want to give him another couple of outings just to see, because the ceiling on Diego is, a legitimate, back end guy who avoids hard contact and gets a few strikeouts. So, I don't think that I would change anything in the pen right now, with the exception of, getting Andres Munoz back and healthy. And it sounds like he's on track to come back at the minimum 15 days and move on from McCacken, who is right now just kind of there to exist if
He's just
needed.
chilling. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the move, because you don't want to bring up anybody and then send them back down for McCacken. You can just keep McCacken in the pen for now. So yeah, I think that's it. Because once Munoz comes back, obviously, McCacken is the move for Munoz.
Hmm.
And then everybody else right now, I think you're okay with, Brash, maybe a couple more rough outings where he's really struggling to throw strikes. Maybe you make a move there, but I think you just kind of chill with the bullpen as is. And be opportunistic if somebody hits the waiver wire that you like, and don't be afraid to make that move. But no, I think the
Mhm.
bullpen is okay right now. But there are a couple guys who are certainly, I don't want to say they're on the hot seat, but we're certainly watching them a little closer to see if maybe they need to make a move there. And guys like Taylor Saucedo, and
Mhm.
AJ Puck,
Riley O'Brien.
yeah, Riley O'Brien, AJ Puckett is a guy who has already moved up to AAA. They really like his stuff. Wantain is another guy who looks like he's back to where he was a few years ago, or well, back to where we thought he could be a few years ago out of the bullpen. So yeah, the Mariners have some options there that they can call on pretty easily. So yeah, I don't think you're making a move yet, but I think you're watching pretty much you're watching Brash and Castillo right now, and Castillo is the easy one if you do have to make a move.
Yeah, and before I think it's going to be a while before we see a pretty significant move in the bullpen, and that's probably when you finally have some clarity with regards to Prelander Baroa and what you want to do with him this season. If you want him to actually throw out of the bullpen or not. Isaiah Campbell could make a play eventually, but O'Brien, Puckett, some of those guys, I'm sure they're going to filter in here. Maybe
Yep.
they'll even start doing that now. Maybe that spot that currently McCacken holds will kind of rotate some of those guys through, and they'll see who ends up sticking. But they're not short of options, and knowing the history and the reputation that this organization has for relief talent and for developing relief talent and identifying them, I'm sure one of those guys is going to hit for them. I would feel fairly confident about that. So I'm not too concerned about the bullpen. I think they'll eventually find their good mix of 8 guys that they go with.
Mhm.
So next question here comes from Daisy and the Dingo, who asks, if Kelnick keeps on playing well, what does the role look like for Taylor Trammell when he gets back? Um,
How good does Taylor Trammell look?
yeah, that's the important
That's
part,
the only
right?
important part.
Yeah.
Because if Trammell looks good, you still have at bats to give because you haven't figured out something to do with the DH. You're
Yep.
still a bat short. So if Trammell
Hmm.
looks good, he just rotates in the outfield and the DH like the other 3 guys or 4 guys
Hmm.
with Pollock.
Yep.
Pretty simple, really. But he has to look good
Yeah.
is the thing.
Yeah. I think ultimately it affords you more opportunities, and this is again assuming that he looks good and Kelnick looks good. It affords you more opportunities to DH Teo and possibly get Trammell and Kelnick and Julio all in the same outfield, which would be really
Mhm.
nice defensively. Um,
Also gives you a legitimate center field option, so you can give Julio a day off or have Julio DH once in a while. Trammell is a legitimate center fielder. Kalnick is passable.
yeah.
So, yeah, it
Yeah.
affords you a lot of different opportunities, but ultimately Trammell has to play well.
He has to play well. He has to stay healthy.
Yep.
He has to be healthy when he gets here too. So
Mhm.
all those questions need to be answered first. But yeah, if both of those guys are looking good, I mean that's great for the Mariners.
Right.
That's a
Right now,
that gives them that gives them an answer to one of their biggest issues right now. So
sure. Right now you have 4 guys for 4 spots. You want to
mhm,
have 5 guys for 4 spots is what you really want. And
agreed.
that could be Trammell.
Next question here comes from Cody. Are you concerned at all about Tom Murphy's slow start?
No, not really.
Why?
Because it's been like 12 at bats,
That's
and
good point.
the guy
Yeah.
missed, an entire year, and he's just now
Hmm.
getting back to seeing major league pitching on a
Yeah.
nightly basis. So no, um, yeah, just I'm not going to be concerned about anybody in April. It's not going to happen. So um, it's been Murphy's looked really rough. There's no denying that.
Yeah.
He's looked awful at the plate. Hasn't looked amazing behind it. Hasn't been a huge issue, but not looking great behind it either. But again, this is a guy who had major surgery on his shoulder, and we know that how that can disrupt your swing and everything. And you can take as many hacks as you want in the cages and spring training at bats, but it's just not the same. It's not the same as seeing major league
Mm.
pitching. So yeah, I think you have to give Murphy a little bit of time to kind of reestablish his eye, his hand, his shoulder. Like he just has to get reestablished, and we'll see what happens. He doesn't have unlimited time, but there really isn't an option. aside from Murphy. It's pretty much him, and Cooper Hummel hasn't been much better, and Hummel is not the same caliber of catcher as Tom
Mm.
is defensively. And I know Brian O'Keefe's gotten off to a really good start in Tacoma, but so like, has the bat speed gotten significantly better? Maybe it has. I don't know. But that's kind of been the big issue with O'Keefe and why he hasn't been in the majors for more than the cup of coffee, is that there's some real question about whether or not he can hit velocity. And maybe he's a 4A player. I don't know, but I don't think that you want to. And by the way, remember, if you want to move on from Tom Murphy, you have to DFA him, and somebody's going to pick
Mhm.
up Tom Murphy. So I don't think O'Keefe's the answer. I don't think Hummel's the answer. Nottingham's not the answer. So until Murphy is so bad for so long that you have to make a move,
Mhm.
don't make a move. Just kind of ride it out.
And to me, Murphy's defense, his leadership,
Yep.
which we know that he's one of the the bigger voices in that clubhouse, and his rapport with the pitching staff matters a lot more to me than whatever he's doing offensively.
Right.
If I just have to assume that he's kind of a black hole in my lineup, at least for now, then so be it. That's pretty much the case for most backup catchers in Major League Baseball anyway. It's disappointing that he's not coming out of the gates blazing hot, and
Mhm.
really kind of living up to this. We've talked about how the Mariners could potentially have the best catching situation in all of baseball. That hasn't been the case so far, but nevertheless, they have a pretty normal or a better than average, catching situation still, because they have one of the better catchers in baseball in Cal Raleigh. So
Yeah. A lot of teams have a black hole at the catcher position, not the
in
backup catcher.
general,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
Martin Maldonado is the starting catcher for the Houston Astros, who are a World Series favorite.
yeah. Great defender,
Yeah.
terrible offensive
Yep.
player, except when he plays against the Mariners.
When he plays against the Mariners, he's Johnny Bench, but you know,
Yeah,
David Fletcher is Ryan Sandberg, so it happens.
yeah, yeah. David Fletcher now in AAA after the call up of Zach Neto, which has not worked out properly for the Angels thus
It's
far. It's only
early.
been a couple games.
It's early.
It's only been a couple
As you
games,
know,
but
I'm a
yeah,
Zach Neto fan, but
yeah.
yeah, not great so far. Not great.
All right. Next question here comes from Daisy and the Dingo again. Who has impressed you thus far in the farm system through the first 2 weeks of minor league games?
Nobody.
I'm
It's over.
gonna start with Cole Young. Cole
Of
Young's been
course you are.
awesome this year. Yeah, of course I am, because the guy just keeps on hitting. I think he's around a 400 average right now through the first 9 games of the year. He has 7 extra base hits. We haven't seen the over the wall power. We haven't
That's the
seen a
only
home
thing
run
that
yet,
matters.
but yeah,
Cole
but
Young
he
is
has
a backup. He's Sam Haggerty. Fine, whatever. Cole Young's been really good. Yeah.
we've seen him have 6 doubles, 1 triple already through the first 9 games of the year. He just keeps on hitting, and he's playing good defense. You're seeing all the things that you really want out of Young, aside from the development of power, over the wall power. So would like to see more of that as the year progresses. But again, we're only 9 games in, so there's still plenty of time for that to happen.
Yeah, he's going to see Everett soon.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
he's not long for Modesto.
No, if he continues anywhere near this pace, he's not going to make it to Memorial Day in Modesto. So
Mhm.
outside shot that maybe he hits here in Arkansas, I'd say unlikely, but maybe he gets a cup of coffee at the end. Um, yeah, I think Brian Wu is a guy who's really opened up some eyes again. Just the one start I think so far for Wu,
2.
two.
2.
So
Yep.
okay, but Wu's been really good. He might be closer to helping you in the rotation right now than Bryce Miller. Miller's been okay, but the slider hasn't really worked out too well, and his outings have been fine, but not amazing. So we'll see. It's early for him. Emerson Hancock has created some buzz. There seems to be some belief that he's extracting value out of his fastball right now. There are reports that he's actually getting more extension than he was in the past, and that's allowing the fastball to play up a little bit more at the top of the zone, which is great because we already know Hancock has the really good changeup and he throws a ton of strikes. So that's an interesting one. How about Hogan Windish? Seems like he's
Mm.
just continuing to mash and this is a guy who just feels like he's inevitably going to hit his way to the big leagues. And you figure out what to do with him, but he's not a zero at second base either. I'm not saying he's good, but he's better than Ty France at second base. So maybe he can have a little bit of defensive versatility, but he continues to just absolutely crush the ball. And that's good to see. So, yeah, there's a lot of really good things happening down on the farm right now. Harry Ford is an on base machine, not really hitting for average right now, but I think he's walked like 2 times in like 6 of the last 8 games or something like that. Like he is drawing plenty of walks and he's hitting the ball hard. So, yeah, a lot of good
Mm.
things happening down on the farm. Wantane again looks like he's a legitimate major league bullpen arm right now. So yeah, a lot of fun things are happening, but I'd say Hogan Windish, Cole Young, and Brian Wu probably still on the show so far.
Yeah, Wu looks very comfortable in his first little taste of Double A ball, so that's been nice to see. And
Yeah.
like you said, right now he's looked better than Bryce Miller.
Hmm.
So maybe this whole Miller's the guy. Miller's going to be the 5. Eventually, maybe that's actually Wu. Maybe it's Emerson Hancock.
Yeah,
Who knows?
it could be. I think both of those guys would fare better right now against a major league lineup than Miller.
Mm.
Just because Miller right now is basically one pitch. Um, Miller,
And that may mean that Miller ends up pitching out of the bullpen at some point in Seattle this year.
yeah,
It's early. It's very early, but again, if
right.
he can't really figure that out, you can still get some value out of him pitching out
Mhm.
of a relief role.
Same with
So
Wu, same with Hancock, and same with Broa. So yeah, that
yep.
double A rotation, pretty good.
All right, last question of the day, Colby, comes from at Dime Flows. Are you worried about Colton Wong's offensive performance so far? Colby, you're the Wong guy, so
I
you
would
go
say
for
I'm the
it.
right guy.
Mm,
David Wright, of course. Um, Jamie
David
Wright,
Wright.
former Mariner.
Uh,
Um,
sure. Wow,
no,
that's such a weird poll.
yeah, I know. I used to dominate with him in MLB 2K12.
Okay, yeah,
Nasty
yeah.
cutter curveball combo. Um,
Rob Brantley, MLB
yeah,
2K12
also
god.
former
Yeah.
Mariner.
Also former
Yeah,
Mariner, yeah.
for a
Yeah.
brief moment.
Yeah.
No, I'm not really. It's been frustrating to see him struggle like this. But it's he's not chasing all that much. Like the quality of the at bats are okay. He's just not getting hits, and that's a bummer. And obviously, he's by this point he's definitely pressing. It's not easy to look up at the scoreboard and see, a sub 100 batting average at any point, but let alone in the middle of April. So,
Yeah.
no, I'm not worried. By the way, team's on a 4-game winning streak, and half the questions we got today are you worried about a player? Come on, guys. I'm the negative one. Really? Really?
Wow.
Because I'm not worried about anything. And here, oh my God, Julio's awful. And Colton Wong's been so bad. Oh my, what are we gonna do? Win 4 games in a row? I don't know. That's not good enough for you anymore. That's right. I'm turning it on you guys.
Turning it on the chat.
Yes.
Colby chat node over here. Get a load of these guys.
Yeah. No, I'm not yet worried about Wong offensive performance, but he does have to figure it out pretty quick. The Mariners don't really have another option right now, especially since we don't know if Dylan Moore's coming back at all. They keep on saying, no, he's a couple days away, but you say that every couple days and you get to July and you're like, oh, well, stuff happens. So,
Saw him in the dugout during the
yeah.
Rocky series.
Ooh, fun.
Ooh.
So,
I mean, he's alive.
yeah,
He
that's
exists
good.
still.
That's good. But yeah, and it's not like Haggerty has pushed the issue there either with his play. So, yeah, you just kind of have to wait it out and trust the back of the baseball card. So no, I'm not worried yet. But I do think we're about a month away from having to ask some pretty tough questions about how do you extract value out of Colton Wong if he's not going to hit. But there's nothing in Colton Wong's past that would lead you to believe that he all of a sudden decided or his body decided that he's not a major league quality player at 30 years old, 31 years old. So no, not too worried about it yet.
Yeah, I mean, you're just gonna have a couple guys that start out slow. It's weird. There's really no explanation for it, but just an entire batting order just doesn't all get out to a hot start all at once for every team. I don't know why. It always happens, and it's always a couple of guys that you don't expect to really struggle. And Colton's someone that I didn't think was going to get off to a 300, 400, 500 like start to the season, but like I also didn't think that he was going to be this bad coming off of the last couple of years. Made a swing change. He's had some real good success at the plate the last couple of years. He's been a 115, 117 WRC plus guy the last 2 years. So it's weird to see him just kind of fall off the face of the earth to start this year, but also it's so early. And if he has just a good string of games, for a week offensively, those numbers are going to drastically change because we're so early on still, and numbers are still all over the place at the start of the year. So, yeah, if it gets, if we're a month down the line here and it's still this, if we're not even seeing some form of progress, yeah, we need to have a serious conversation about Colton and have a serious conversation about what the Mariners need to do at second base and how they need to get better at that position. But right now, you just kind of have to ride it out because I still think there's a really good ball player there in Colton Wong. We just haven't seen it yet, but I think we will eventually. Any closing thoughts before we head out of here, Colby?
And I'm just shocked that you guys are as negative as you are. Team's playing pretty good ball right now, and you guys are just whining and complaining the entire time. Weird. It's
Wow.
weird.
Wow.
Here I thought I was the negative one, but you guys have managed to surprise even me. Look in the mirror, people. Look in the mirror.
Sure. All right. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we recap tonight's game between the Mariners and the Brewers, and we'll get you set for tomorrow night's game as well on that episode. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.